Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, and welcome to Weller Bookworks. On behalf of all of the booksellers here, I'd like to thank you for coming out on this chilly, snowy evening. This is great. We're all excited to be here. Tonight, we're excited to host a reading from author Kyle Bradford Jones. He's an associate professor in family and preventative medicine at the University of Utah. His book, Fallible, a memoir of a young physician's struggle with mental illness, is important in its openness and honesty when talking about a very difficult topic. I could go on, but you probably want to hear from the author himself. So without further ado, I give you Kyle Bradford Jones.
That was great, thank you. And thanks everybody for coming. Hopefully we'll pick up a few stragglers here too, but I'm glad that you guys are here, so thank you. Now, by the very fact that you're here, we know that mental illness is such an important topic. And as a physician, I see it every day and treat it every day, but then, as you could probably guess from the title of my book, I live it every day too. And it's sometimes obviously more difficult than others, but it's something that we're able to deal with and work through and continue to try to be successful and to still take care of patients and still live the life that I want to and that I need to. Now, everybody knows multiple people who have mental illness, whether we know it or not. But in 2020, 1 out of every 4 adults in the United States had met diagnosable criteria for a mental illness. Now, you think, okay, well, 2020, that was a pandemic, sure. Before that, it was 1 in 5, which is still way too many. If you think about any other disease that is that common, I mean, you can maybe come up with 1 or 2. There's really not a lot. And so, for it to be that common is absolutely tragic and scary. Even this week, the Surgeon General put out a report on the issue of mental illness in youth, where as part of the report, he said 1 in every 4 youth have depression, which is so sad. It's interesting because not only that, but 1 in every 20 teenagers have thought about suicide. Now, while 1 in 20 doesn't necessarily sound that impressive, when you put it in context, that means 1 or 2 kids in every high school class have thought about suicide. And that's scary. That's a lot. Now, in general, across the nation, the suicide rate is actually coming down. But among youth and certain minority groups, the rate is actually going up. And so, even though overall it looks good, we still have a lot of, we're still not close. We still have a lot of ways to go. Now, it's even worse among physicians. We know that this is a big issue for everybody, but then when you look at it from the perspective of healthcare professionals, 1 physician takes their life every day, at least. Now, we don't have great data on that, but that's the minimum that we know about. That is a rate 2 to 3 times higher than the general population, and it's been that way for 100 years. So it's not anything new, but it is something that's worsening. When you talk about interns who are in their first year of residency training out of medical school, 40% have clinical depression. 40%. 1 in every 4 have thought about suicide. 10% have thought about it in the last 2 weeks. So 10% of residents have thought about taking their own life in the last 2 weeks, which, I mean, it's so scary. So what's going on? I mean, mental illness has been here forever, but it's getting so much worse. So what's the deal? And there are lots of different reasons, and we don't know all of them. We don't have a great understanding, but there are a couple that I do want to highlight. This is my opinion, that this is maybe one of the biggest ones, there is a theory out there called the predictive processing theory of learning. And what this is basically cause and effect. Your brain makes a prediction of what's going to happen in a certain situation, and then based on what does happen, it takes that in and learns it, so that the next time in a similar situation, you can better understand what's coming and better predict the outcome. However, in today's world, most of what we get as the feedback is virtual. It's not real. And so it's coming from the TV or the computer or the telephone or whatever it is. And so the feedback we get is all virtual. And our minds and our bodies don't know how to handle that, because what it's learning is not actually applicable. And so there's a lot of evidence that this is a major way in which our brain learns, and that this really could be one of the biggest drivers towards mental illness, and why it's worsening so much now. In medicine, we talk about the biopsychosocial model of illness, which basically means there are lots of different aspects that go into any disease. So biological, psychological, social. And it's the same with mental illness. So biological can be from genetics, that can play a big role into it. But also, if you think of psychological causes such as trauma or very severe emotional stress, and even social causes of the environment that you're in, whether that's physical or emotional or spiritual, or any of those things play a huge role into progressing into a mental illness. And so really it's so tough to know then, okay, what do we do about it? And why are so many people not seeking more help? This great story that my mom reminded me of the other day. So my grandfather loved his label maker. And he made labels and put it on everything. You walk into his house, you'd see it all over. And at one point, they had a mug that broke. There's a big crack down the side of the mug. So he gets a label and puts it on there that says broken. He doesn't try to fix it. He doesn't do anything else. He puts the label on, puts it in the cupboard, and that's it. And there it sits. But so often, that's like us, especially with mental illness. We either label ourselves or others label us as broken. And we think, okay, well, we're going to stay that way. There's no hope. There's no way to fix it. But that's not true. There is. And it's hard. And you may not live the absolute ideal life that you want, but you can still have happiness. You can still have hope in your life. You can still do many of the things that you want to, as long as you're willing to take those steps to get the help that you need. I do want to read one paragraph, which is from the introduction of the book. I say, I am a physician. I deal in suffering and hope, life and death, health and sickness, pain and wellness. I straddle a binary world, the middle of which is filled with frustration and the unknown. Many of us do. This isn't another story of a physician discovering what it's like to be a patient, or a man finding his way in the world despite severe anxiety and depression. It is not an experience of triumph or cure, because my battle isn't over. No, this is about the fallibility of us all, about the fine line of illness and normal emotion, about how to be content and successful despite ongoing weakness. It's for individuals who suffer from mental illness. It's for their loved ones. It's for neighbors and teachers and convenience store cashiers and vagabonds and athletes and attorneys and stay-at-home parents and business leaders, community leaders, government leaders, etc. It's for anyone who interacts with someone with a mental illness. It's for all of us. So, again, thank you for coming. I appreciate you being here, and I am happy to sign any books or otherwise. Thanks.